Thank you for that lovely introduction, Katie. I will share my screen.
Perfect.
And all right. So before I get started on my planned talk today, I need to do an active self-care and tell you that I'm actually having a migraine day. And the reason I think of this as self-care is because if I didn't tell you, I would be focused on trying to give you the perfect presentation and hide that I'm having a migraine attack. By telling you, and that would be incredibly stressful. By telling you what's going on, I can focus instead on giving you the best presentation that I can, doing the best job I can given the circumstances. And you might not think of that as self-care, but that's actually, to me, the key part of self-care, sort of honoring yourself, honoring your boundaries, and reducing your stress in any way that you can. So now I'll jump in and let's see. I am having a technical issue. Okay, got it figured out. So this image is what my life felt like 12 years ago. My migraine attacks were constant and severe. I was essentially housebound and bedridden for much of the time. I was working really hard on trying to improve my physical health, and I wasn't getting anywhere. I was trying all sorts of migraine treatment, lifestyle changes, and nothing was working. And in one of those rock bottom light bulb moments, I realized that I needed to focus on taking care of myself, not just my health, that I wasn't going to get anywhere if I was narrowly focused on my health. I needed to think about all of my life, including my mental and emotional health. And I didn't have the words for it at the time, but that was when I started a self-care practice. It was a few simple things that I did just to make my daily life a little bit easier and make it easier to cope with migraine. And ultimately, by employing those practices, I started to feel better. I started to cope better. My emotional health was better. And that gave me the resources to then work on my physical health, which made me well enough to be able to commit to giving a talk at a Miles for Migraine event. So I don't have a degree in counseling. I'm not a trained therapist, but I have personal experience using simple self-care strategies to, this is going to sound dramatic, but I really feel like they've transformed my life. They've become so woven into my daily life that it's just part of how I live now. And I am so much less stressed and able to handle what life throws at me. So that is what I'm going to talk about today. And you may have a preconceived idea of what self-care is. Still trying to figure out this technical thing. Okay, so this image is what social media shows us self-care is. It's what companies who are trying to get us to buy things to call self-care. This is the kind of thing that they show us. And this might be a great form of self-care for you. For me, I look at this and I wonder how much time and money it took to source 3 different kinds of flowers and cut up oranges. And also how much time I'm going to have to spend cleaning the bathtub, getting that blue ring out of the bathtub and making sure the flowers don't go down the drain. So for me, this is not self-care, but I feel like this is the image that we're really given as self-care. I think of self-care as much more simple. I define it as nurturing yourself in small ways every day. It doesn't have to cost any time or money. It's something that you can just incorporate into your daily life. Now, I'm not saying that sort of big ticket self-care is a problem. If a spa day, if that's a great thing for you, or a weekend getaway, those can be wonderful forms of self-care. But I think of them almost like as date night at a fancy restaurant for a couple. That's a really fun thing to do, and it can be good for the relationship. But what makes or breaks a relationship is actually the day-to-day interaction, the support, the care, the love. And that's how I think of self-care as well. The big ticket items can be wonderful, but they're not going to nurture you or nourish you in the day-to-day. It's these small ways, which you can incorporate into every single thing you do. This may sound daunting if it's not something that you've tried before, but that's what I'm here to talk about. I have made self-care just, I think I said this, woven into my daily life. So I don't really even notice I'm doing it anymore. It's just part of my life. So I'm going to talk about what I think of as 3 categories of self-care, give you some examples of each, and then ask some questions that can help you brainstorm what is your own self-care. My first category is soothing. This is pretty straightforward. It's doing things that you find relaxing or calming throughout the day. My first suggestion is to find beauty. For me, this is nature. So I'll go outside, take a short walk if I can, or just walk around my backyard. If I can't go outside, I look out the window. If I'm somewhere where all I can see is a parking lot, I look at the sky. Basically, any way I can find nature is soothing for me. Even pictures. I have pictures of nature throughout my house. And whatever your form of beauty is, you can access it throughout the day. So if it's music or art, children laughing, animals playing, racing, cars racing, like whatever it is that you find beautiful, you can connect with it in small ways throughout the day. If it's through a photo or a video, that's a great way to at least experience in some way, even if it's a small way, what it is that you find beautiful. Another way to soothe is with soothing touch, like giving yourself a hand massage. I really like this approach because you can do it anywhere. And research shows that soothing touch, giving yourself soothing touch is incredibly calming. So say you're in an argument with somebody, you can give yourself a hand massage. Not only do you have the soothing touch, you also have the relaxation of massaging the muscles in your hand. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see, but this part like of your thumb and right here, those are just like the perfect points for a hand massage. They feel so good and it's really soothing. And if you're somewhere a little where it won't be intrusive, you can give yourself a jaw massage, or head massage, foot massage. Any way that you can give yourself soothing touch is calming and relaxing. And another way to soothe is to take a belly breath. So for most people, unless they've been taught about belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, when they take a deep breath, they actually take it into their chest. And that can actually cause more stress than relaxation because it almost feels like hyperventilating. Belly breathing, when you do that, your stomach rises or your belly rises more than your chest. And actually in the yoga portion of today, Juliana is going to talk to you about belly breathing. So you'll understand exactly how it works. I don't have time to do it justice in this talk, but I think that she'll give you a really great explanation of how to do it. And once you know how to do it, it can feel a little awkward at first. It can take a little time to make it comfortable. But once you know how to do it, it's something you can do anytime. It's a tool you have with you all the time, and it is so incredibly soothing. So some questions for your brainstorm. Simply, what do you find soothing? And how can you incorporate those things into your daily life in small ways? The small ways part is the key here, because you might find a 2-hour bubble bath to be the most soothing thing that you can do, and you just don't have time to do it. But what if when you took a shower, you turned off the lights, you lit candles, and you used an essential oil diffuser, if that's not a trigger for you? That can be a soothing way to get in touch with, the water over your body and having the dim light that you might get with a bubble bath. It may not be as soothing as a bubble bath. It might be, say, 20% as soothing as a bubble bath. But if you don't have time to take the bubble bath, then that is some soothing that you can get into your day that you wouldn't have otherwise. The next category is savoring. And this is simply enjoying the things that are in your daily life. We generally make choices, the choices that we make to fill our lives generally, the things that we fill our lives with are things that we like. The food that we eat, the clothes that we wear, the music we listen to, the people that we choose, our friends. These are generally choices that we've made because we enjoy the things or people. And yet by making the choice to make them part of our everyday lives, we actually stop noticing them and we stop appreciating how much they mean to us and how much we enjoy them. So my first example for this is to switch it up. I love coffee, and my coffee drink is an Americano. I make it at home. I get it when I go out, and I love it. Recently, though, I was craving a latte, and so I got that when I was out, and I loved it too. And I had forgotten how much I love lattes. I just don't make them at home. And, I'd gotten out of the habit of even considering drinking a latte because I thought of myself as an Americano drinker. So I got this latte and I absolutely loved it. And I savored the entire thing. And still, the next time I had an Americano, I actually savored it more than usual because I remembered all of the things that I love about Americanos. So if you switch something up, it doesn't have to be food, although that's an easy thing to do. It can be grabbing a shirt from the back of your closet that you remember liking, but you never wear. So if you switch it up, you might find that you love both things, like I did. You might find that you prefer your usual standby, which is totally fine. And the next time you go back to your standby, you'll appreciate it even more and you'll savor it. You might find that you like the new thing even better. And then you have a new thing to incorporate into your life and you savor it more because it's new. Another way to savor is to move and appreciate your body. I'm not talking about running a marathon or even walking around the block, simply stretching. So actually right now as you're seated, do a stretch that feels comfortable to you. Nothing that's going to be uncomfortable or painful, just whatever feels right to you. So I'm going to reach my arms over my head and feel that stretch in my biceps and how good that feels. And then I'll lean a little to the side. I'm really tight. So I'm feeling that stretch under my arms, and it just feels really good. And with migraine, it's really important to connect to the ways in which your body feels good. So many people with migraine describe feeling broken or like their bodies have betrayed them. And so being able to connect with a way in which your body is working well or feels good helps you savor the good things about what your body can do, rather than just being angry and hating what migraine is doing to you. You can experience what it is that your body still does well. And a third way to savor is to note something good each day. This is another thing that can seem hard with migraine. I promise it's possible because this is actually how I started my self-care those 12 years ago. Each night before bed, I would think of 3 good things that happened in the day. And an example of what that list might be is I had water on my bedside table when I needed to take my medication. Somebody said something that made me laugh, or my pain topped out at an 8 instead of getting worse. Those are not headline good things for most people, but when I was in the thick of misery with migraine, they were good. And they were a really helpful reminder that life was not generally terrible. Migraine was terrible, and I felt really bad physically, but there were still good things in my life. And this was a way to connect with that. And it helped me. My list actually got better over time because I started noticing throughout the day all of the little good things that happened. And it really helped improve my outlook. And I noticed, like, I'm thinking over just a few months of thinking of 3 good things every night. I really noticed a change in my overall outlook and my overall happiness. So I know it can seem really hard with migraine, but I promise you it's possible, and can attest to how powerful that this can be. Some questions for your brainstorm. What do you enjoy or appreciate in your everyday life? And how can you make space to savor those things? Making space is what's really important here. because savoring doesn't have to take any time. It doesn't, like, it's really, the key with savoring is to almost to step back and just recognize what's around you. So it's really about making space to savor. And my third category of self-care is stopping. This is stopping or limiting things that aren't working for you, or finding ways to make things that you don't like but have to do better. My first example for stopping is to pause before saying yes. We're often told to say no, or to learn to say no. And I find that advice really difficult to follow, because usually if I'm asked to do something, I want to say yes, or I have a I can see compelling reasons why I would say yes. And so it's not an easy decision to say no, because I don't actually want to say no. So instead, I thank the person for the opportunity and tell them I'll get back to them tomorrow. And you really do have to get back to them tomorrow. This is not an excuse to ghost. It's a chance to, yes, take a look at your calendar and see if you have time, but also think about the bigger implications of saying yes. Is there going to be emotional labor because you have to deal with drama or people fighting? Is there going to be a mental burden on you because it's something that you're going to think about a lot, or worry about, or even lose sleep over? And another thing to think about is, what are you not going to be able to do if you say yes to this opportunity? Maybe it's just that you're not going to be able to do your Saturday night Netflix binge with your best friend. To some people, and depending on the opportunity, maybe you do want to say yes to the opportunity. Maybe that time with your best friend is so nourishing and so critical to your emotional health that, sorry, I just got a notice that you could just now see my screen. Okay. Anyway, so maybe that Netflix binge is so important in your emotional. I'm good?
Yes, you've been good.
Thank you. Okay. Maybe that Netflix binge is so important to your emotional health that that it's better to do that instead. So you can think about these factors before you agree to doing something or not. And also keep in mind that you don't just have to give a flat out no. Say you were asked to help organize your aunt's birthday party, and there is no way that you can take that on. You can say, I'm sorry, I can't help organize it, but tell me what time to show up the morning of the event and I'll help set up and I'll stay late to do cleanup. Or you can volunteer to help with catering, finding a caterer or designing invitations, whatever works for you and whatever's right for the situation. There are creative ways that you can give a yes without the big yes. Another way to stop is to choose your indulgences wisely. I feel like as self-care becomes more commercialized is the word that comes to mind, more popular in everyday culture, it becomes more common to see people justifying decisions as self-care, whether they're self-care or not. So a friend of mine just told me this story about, he got roped into spending $300 on self-care or on skincare products. He had no intention of buying them, and he decided, okay, this is self-care, I'll do it. And for him, that was a good decision. He got a great story out of it. And I have no doubt that he's going to use every drop of those products, and it will feel like self-care to him. If I'd been in that situation, every time I looked at those bottles, I would feel guilty for spending the money. And I would be mad at myself for getting talked into buying something I didn't need. So for me, that's not self-care because it makes me feel bad. For my friend, it's a great decision. But for me, it just doesn't work. And so this is, it's important to think about what works for you and to choose the indulgences that actually work for you. And honestly, you are going to likely to buy something or I don't know, eat a pint of Ben & Jerry's and call it self-care, and then you might feel bad afterward. That's part of the process. You need to learn what it is that does and doesn't feel like self-care for you. So don't get upset with yourself if you choose something that doesn't work for you. You can just use that as a learning experience to know what is and isn't self-care for you. And another way to stop or at least make something better, is to add pleasure to a task that you dread. So cooking, cleaning, commuting, exercising, we all have activities that we need to do in our daily lives that we just don't enjoy. And I found the best way to make these tasks better is to choose something that I can only do during those tasks. So think of something that that would make whatever it is, whatever your task is that you really dread doing, think about something you could do that would make it better. For me, it's I've chosen my favorite podcasts that I listen to when I exercise. The key is I only listen to them when I exercise. I don't let myself listen to them any other time. So that makes me more eager to exercise because I can do this thing that I really enjoy only when I'm exercising. It's called temptation bundling in behavioral economics, which I just love that phrase of temptation bundling. So you add the good with the bad, and that makes the bad a little bit better. Some questions to ask about stopping are, what adds stress to your daily life? And what are some creative ways you can reduce the burden? Creative is the important part here, because I think you've figured out that stopping is the hardest of the three categories that I've talked about. It's often about setting healthy boundaries, which is really hard to do. And it takes creativity because many of these things feel like things we can't stop, even if we can. And so learning how to approach them, or figuring out how to approach them creatively, is a way to make it a little bit easier to do, because they can feel really black or white, like I have to plan this birthday party or I don't, when in fact there can be a lot of nuance. If you have a therapist or are able to work with a therapist, they're really a great resource for figuring out stopping. Mine has been incredibly helpful. So I want to make a plug for therapists there. Those are my three categories. Some things to keep in mind with self-care are to give yourself permission, because you need this. I think everybody needs simple, practical self-care in their daily lives to really thrive, but particularly people with migraine, because you are already starting with, I don't want to say a deficit, that doesn't feel quite right, but migraine is a big burden. You're already living your life with a burden. And so you need self-care to nourish yourself, to give yourself the resources to deal with life. And even if you don't think that you deserve self-care, I think it can be helpful to think of it as something that you need, or something that your body needs. That was how I first approached it. I didn't think I deserved it. I wasn't doing anything. I was just lying around all day, but my body needed it. And I now have 12 years of self-care to attest to show how much of a difference it's made. Start with what seems easiest. So you might look at your brainstorm list of self-care items and decide you're going to start with setting a boundary with a family member, or something that's pretty hard because it seems like it would be the most fruitful. And that might be true, but I recommend starting with something that seems easy. There's multiple things that seem easy, because first you get practice of trying some self-care and incorporating it into your life. And once you incorporate it into your life, you then have it to bolster your resources. So you're then more able to tackle a larger self-care step. Do what works for you. What works for me may not work for you. So that's why the brainstorm is important. I told you I started my self-care with 3 good things. The other thing I started with was brushing my teeth with an electric toothbrush and flossing. That may not seem like self-care to anybody else, but it was a major piece of self-care for me at that point in my life. So really, whatever feels like self-care for you, try it. See, does that work for you? And do it if it does. Keep trying. You'll try things that you think will feel like self-care and realize they don't work for you. That's fine. You haven't failed. You just haven't found the right thing for you. So keep trying new things and give it time. You might try something for a week and think, oh, this feels really good. And then a month later, you realize you're not doing it anymore. that's again, fine. It can take some time to incorporate these practices into your life. Even if the practices themselves don't take time, making them part of your daily life, if it's not something that you already do, it takes time to incorporate them and make them just feel normal and not like something that you have to think about. So give it time to make them work in your life. We have some time now for questions. I'm going to bring up a slide that's some resources. There's a link that links to a link that has some things that I've shared about self-care and my contact information. If you have questions for me that you don't get to ask today, please email me. That's the best way to be sure to get a response from me. I don't always check social media. So what questions do you have?
That's great. What a great presentation. What great suggestions as well for all of us.
Thank you.
I do not see any questions. Someone just said there's an app called the 5-Minute Journal, which is a good version of a gratitude journal.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And I know, I can't remember the name of it. There's, I think it's something like Happiness Feed. It's another app where the idea is it's almost like your Facebook feed, but you're making notes of good things each day. So yeah, that app is a great idea. And I know there are some other apps too. If that particular one doesn't work for you, there might be a different angle that is right for you.
That's great. I love all the positive energy you brought to your presentation. It's wonderful. And the tips are so good. What works for one, what works for one might not work for the other, but I too started journaling, and it definitely takes your mind from the negative to the positive. Mm-hmm. I can't remember what, I got a book to help me. And it's when I first get up, I have to write 3 positive things down for my day. And then when I lastly turn the light out for bed, I have to write down 3 positive things from my day. And with migraine, as you said, we all tend to focus on the negative. I mean, I'm chronic 24/7. So, I never, ever do not have a migraine. And it makes me think of the positive things that did happen in my day. And it definitely changes your mind. It takes time, for that to happen over time. It finally, maybe a week, it took me journaling to say, hey, there really is good in my day, and I have to focus on that.
Yeah.
And while your migraine doesn't go away, it helps, right?
Yeah. I found that sort of the self-care, the coping strategies, all of those things that I've tried, they haven't directly changed my migraine frequency, severity, anything like that, but they've changed how I feel about my life. Right. And I, even when the migraines were still really bad, it was much less common for me to say, cry myself to sleep, which used to happen all the time. And changing my outlook really helped. I talk about the two components of migraine. There are the physical symptoms and there are the emotional symptoms, because it is a huge emotional burden. And so these are ways to deal with those emotional symptoms. And by dealing with those, they free up your sort of internal resources or your bandwidth to be able to deal with migraine better. And there are a lot of people who do make lifestyle changes or coping strategies. They employ coping strategies or journaling, any of these things that we've talked about, and they do make an impact on their migraine frequency or severity. It didn't for me, but I know it does for a lot of people.
Agree. Well, wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. And I know everybody learned a lot from you.
Thank you, Katie.
I appreciate it. Thank you.